guys, welcome to another episode. I'm that car guy Tim here with Jeff Corradetti from Corradetti Motorsports. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Welcome.
Thanks.
First off, how are things going for you? You've got a few updates that are coming on your channel as far as life.
So I'm basically branding it into more of a commercial business type of YouTube channel, and I'm going to add some car reviews. So I'm going to be, reviewing some of the new cars on the local lots. Just kind of go through with them and try to, decipher if it's a good product for some people that are looking for it. Just giving it my point of view and my take. But I'm also going to try to include a little bit more of the off-roading with the Tacoma and also with ATV and side-by-side, which is part of the Corradetti Motorsports umbrella.
Right on. Awesome. And speaking of Corradetti Motorsports, if you are looking for safety training, first aid or anything, and you're in Southern Alberta, this is the guy you want to talk to. So I'll leave a link to your channel in the description. Go check it out. Go subscribe to Jeff's channel as well. And again, if you're in Southern Alberta looking for some first aid training or off-road driving instruction, he's the man. But we're here to talk about some exciting news over in Europe. It's just been announced that in Finland, 54%, for the first time, the majority of vehicles sold in Finland were electric. 54% as compared to about 49% in 2019. That's big news for the electric car market.
It is, and that's where the trend is going worldwide. Not so much here in North America. There's a lot of reasons for that. But in Europe, we're seeing a lot of governments moving towards an electrified future. We see not only governments and policies, but we're also looking at the industry as well. They've embraced it, they're developing it, and that's where the investment and that's where the industry ultimately is going to be heading out.
Absolutely. And I know in BC here, it's possible you can drive from Victoria to Vancouver and all the way to the Alberta border fully electric. There's electric charging stations all over southern BC. It's starting to go into northern BC now. How do you see electric vehicles moving along in Canada?
It's going to be more regionally based. So certain markets that have a little bit more stable temperatures, you'll see the EV market grow in there, from public transit to commercial vehicles and to private vehicle ownerships. When you talk about the rural part of the country, well, that's where you're going to start seeing it in a little bit more time. So as better battery technology is available and product availability too, and also infrastructure for charging gets increased, then the sensibility of owning an EV will make more sense to more Canadians.
Absolutely.
Provincial governments definitely can help out. The federal government's got programs for EV, and they're looking at a low carbon future. So that's kind of where the focus is going to be on those platforms. Each province is different. Usually the prairie provinces aren't so friendly to adapt to changes in that respect. So you might see the prairie provinces lag behind on legislation, investment, and customer acceptance into those products.
Absolutely. And the one big thing too, the Finns have said by 2025 they want everything fully electric. You can't buy a combustion engine in Finland after 2025. But in Canada, like the big argument for people who are against electric vehicles right now is, it gets cold. How are they performing in the cold? The Finns get cold too.
Yes.
So does that just kibosh that entire argument? It's
a different world. You're carrying different markets. Interestingly enough, Quebec has announced a ban on internal combustion engines. So we're looking at, I think in Quebec it's by 2030. I'm not too sure on that. You could correct it in this video.
If it's wrong, it's down a little ticker right there.
So Quebec is the first to go to a policy of banning ICE, internal combustion engines. Where you're going to see is with the Finns, yes, it's colder, but they don't have the amount of mileage that they drive. And Canadians, for the most part, in the rural areas, do a lot more driving. And so the range anxiety is a real issue. But that's not where electrification vehicles are at this stage of the game. We're looking at more in the commuter world within bigger cities where you're not driving 150 kilometers in between gas stations or charging stations. You could do your commute in the morning and easily do it for 2-3 days before you really need to charge it.
Absolutely. And the distance thing too. Like in the 90s, GM was onto something when they said, in the 90s, they were saying that, 80% of Californians, their commute isn't more than 40 miles. And our range with the first GM electric vehicle, you'd have about 20% of battery left when you got home, which was perfect.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what the EV1, which is available only in California for a lease in a certain time, was that research that they knew that the average the car was good for 80% of the California driving public, where you can get in the morning, go to your destination, and then come back home, charge it, and for those commuters, that product was perfect.
Yeah.
Now you want to take a road trip or you want to do all these little trips in betweens. Yeah, now that's where the limitation came in.
Yeah.
But where are we now? Well, the EV1 is to 1996, 1997, I believe it was, up to 1998, might have a 2-year stretch. But now we are 22 years later, 23 years later.
Yeah.
And you know, our EVs are just as capable for range as a gasoline engine.
Yeah, if I bought a Tesla, I'd have more range than I do in Black Gold. Black Gold, I can get 650 kilometers to a tank.
Yeah.
Whereas if I buy a Tesla, I can get more range out of a Tesla. Mind you, the Tesla's going to be way more because I'm going to need the bigger battery pack and dual motors.
It'll cost more.
It would cost more, but
the area too you got to look at is, yes, in the winter time, battery range is less, but so is an internal combustion engine.
yeah,
You idle it in the morning, you put your remote start, you're defrosting your windows. The cold weather will make you use more fuel, so you have a shorter range in internal combustion engines. It's just that the internal combustion engine has been around for 100 and something years, and we built the infrastructure around it.
Yeah.
Now that we're going to electrification, now we got to build a whole new infrastructure around electrification. But that can mean more jobs, more investment, greener technology that's going to be, you know, used to offset, you know, the carbon-free future that we're going to have. So I mean, there's very little disadvantage. There's no silver bullet. There's no perfect 100% environmentally perfection, but it's a world of difference.
and you're already starting to see fuel stations starting to adapt to this new green world that we're moving towards. I know in Alberta, there's some stations that already have charging stations that you have to pay to use the electricity, but it's there. So they're moving from your traditional fuel pump to your electric pump, for lack of a better term.
And electricity is cheaper than fuel right now.
Yeah.
And we've seen in Canada, fuel, you know, bottom out at 49 cents a liter when the gas was down, but when it was really high, it was hovering near $2 a liter. So fuel is very unstable pricing as well. We got to look at where electricity, the infrastructure is already there. We already got electricity in our houses, everywhere we go.
And 80% of electricity in BC is hydro.
Yeah, so it's green energy anyway. So if you look at improving the grid, that's easier. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there to put bigger generators, more transmission lines to adapt. And it's going to be a slow adaptation.
Yeah.
It's not that tomorrow morning I'm buying an electric car, you're buying an electric car. There's going to be 10 million electric cars in Canada in a year. It's not that. It's a slow progression.
Yeah.
And so as we improve the technology and as consumers are adapting to it, well, then now the automakers can make a better argument to say when you start getting into the off-road world and the truck world, we're going to start seeing more electrified vehicles in other forms of transportation, not only in the big vehicles, but even in the small vehicles.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to see different types of platforms.
So one could argue, few years, we're talking like 90s and 2000s. I'm 26. Few years for me is still, when I think 20 years ago, I still think 1980. But, you know, in the early 2000s, diesel was cheap. 90s and diesel was cheap. And everybody saw diesel was cheap.
And
so they all went out and got diesel vehicles.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the price of diesel, some places it's more than your regular grade fuel.
And environmental, you got to remember we have more strict tailpipe emissions. So now we got to add a chemical plant under the hood with DPF fluid and
the DPF
and then all the components that go around it, making the internal combustion engine a lot more expensive.
So would that in turn turn some people off of electric, saying, well, if that happened to diesel, well, if I buy an electric car in 10 years, is electricity going to be through the roof, cost me more than an ICE?
I don't think so. I think like everything else, costs will be variable, but it's not going to be that it's going to be a deterrent. You know, you're going to look at some areas. I think right now we're in the incentive stage,
Right.
where we have to kind of bribe people to buy things. Oh, we'll give you a provincial discount. We'll give you a federal discount. We'll give you, you know, cheaper insurance. We'll give you cheaper registration. You can use the high occupancy lane depending on what province you're in. So right now we're at that, trying to incentivize the changeover, because there's going to be some people that are reluctant.
Yeah.
There's range anxiety still. There's the cost of replacing the battery still, which is a legitimate concern. But these are all concerns that are going to be ironed out every year. Step forward, it becomes less of a concern. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see different business platforms, different industries that grow out of the changeover. And then, so, you know, interesting enough, a lot of studies that show that people who have bought electric cars, over 90% of them they will not go back to a gas engine, and they're going to remain in the electric world. And we're still in the infancy stage of this, so it shows you the viability.
Absolutely. Well, right on. That's amazing thoughts. If you have any thoughts on electric vehicles, range, and what you think the future is for electric vehicles, comment down below. I'd love to see your comments on that. Thank you so much for watching. Jeff, thanks for being on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Make sure you go check out Jeff's channel down below. And remember, if you're looking for first aid training or ATV off-road training, this is the guy to do it if you're in Southern Alberta. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure, click subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your buddies. Have fun. Get her done.
Bye, guys.